Chid, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Yes to both. And sorry, just because before we get into anything, I just wanted to ask a question real quick. After you, ask some of your questions, is it okay if I also present some stuff to you? Because I don't want us to just go in a circle, like disagreeing with some things. I also wanted to like have another conversation with you, if that's okay.
That's fine, but I only have a couple rules. And one of the rules is if I ask you a simple yes or no question, you have to say yes or no before you can give your detailed explanation. You can't just go ramble on forever on something that has nothing to do with my question. Like if you ask me a
Okay.
question, I just provide the answer. I don't pivot and talk about something else.
Okay. No, no problem.
Right. So, do you believe that your God is all good?
Yeah, I do.
Does your God ever do anything bad?
No.
If your God told you to do something, are you required to do it?
Yeah. You can say no, but you're not forced to, but yeah, you can disagree.
Do you have children?
No, I don't.
If you had children and God told you to put one of them under the water till they stop breathing, would that be the right thing to do?
I would definitely think logically no, but knowing that God is God, I would think there was a reason for that. Kind of like the Abraham and Isaac situation.
Sure. So you do it.
I might not. It just depends. Like I can't say 100%, but
That's
yeah,
sick.
maybe. Why?
Sick. That you would harm a
So do you
children.
think Abraham?
You would drown a children in water because you thought a voice from a sky fairy told you so. That's disgusting. You should be in a
Yeah.
padded room.
But the thing is, it's not necessarily a voice from the sky, though. Like from with Abraham, do you think he was listening to a voice in the sky?
Yep, it was a sky daddy, according to the narrative. And it's also true that the
What,
whole
what
thing was
evidence do you have for that?
not only was the whole thing unnecessary, but it was traumatizing to Isaac. Also, Mac, thank you so much for all the confetti. In Genesis 22, when Abraham is tested, God doesn't have to test Abraham. God is all knowing. There's no reason for him to traumatize his own child near to the point of death for God to demonstrate that he's going to be faithful or not. God already knows. The whole thing was foolish.
But that's the thing, you're going off of one example. Abraham had some kind of history with God before he decided to do that
I don't
because he
care.
already done the impossible once.
There,
So if someone has done the impossible once,
that's
it's like
irrelevant. Does
kind
God
of
know all
logical.
things?
Yeah,
Did God know that Abraham would do it?
he knew that he had the free will to say no. It was up to Abraham to say
Did
no or
God
yes.
know that he would do it?
I can't answer the question. I'm not God.
Yes, you can.
Like
In
like
your worldview, your God is all knowing.
But that's not the same thing as forcing people to do what
I
you
didn't say
want
anything
them
about
to do.
forcing. I'm asking what your God knows. Does your God know that Abraham will do it?
Yeah, but all knowing is not the same thing
It's a
as
yes or
making
no.
them.
Does your God know the future? Does he know Abraham will do the thing?
Yeah, technically he
Okay, so then
would,
he
but
doesn't need to have Abraham do it because he already knows the outcome.
but that's the thing. I feel like some of the yes or no questions are a bit more complex than just
They're
yes or
not
no.
complicated. It's a yes or no. He either knows something or he doesn't.
No, no, that's not the way it works, though. Okay, can I
That
give an
is,
example?
that is the way that works. If I said, "Do you know what time you're waking up tomorrow?" The answer is yes or no. You either know it or you don't. If I say, "Does God know what's going to happen tomorrow?" It's either a yes or a no. He either knows it or he doesn't.
I mean, he knows what will happen,
There
but
you
it's
go.
up to you to like you have a control over your fate, your destiny. It's not predetermined.
No one's
Because I know
talking
that
about predestination. I don't know why you're bringing that up. We're talking about whether or not God knows the future. So God traumatized Isaac because he needed to put Abraham to the test, which was an unnecessary test since God already knows the future.
okay, so I don't agree with that premise just because, like I said, all knowing doesn't mean that people don't have the free will to do
But
stuff.
listen, I didn't say a damn thing about free will. I don't know why you keep bringing it up. I'm talking about whether or not God knows he's going to do it.
I'm sorry. Are you upset with me in some way? Like I feel like you're
I need
mad
you
at
to
me or something.
focus.
Yeah, I
This is
am.
what
I'm
drives me
trying to
crazy.
like
So it's
I'm trying
irritating
to
when
form
people
my
get up
thoughts, but
here
like I
and
can't.
I ask very clear questions on a very clear topic, and then they keep talking about other things as though they're not listening to the actual conversation being had. So the question is about whether or not God is all knowing. At no point in time did I ever bring up the predestination or whether or not God is forcing anyone to do anything. So I have no idea why you keep going back to that. So it's very easy. So if God already knew that Abraham would do the thing, then why did he have to traumatize Isaac by putting him through it?
I believe you have an answer to that question. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like I don't. I won't say something I don't know because
That's the
there's
right
no
answer.
point.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have an answer, but that doesn't mean that, I'm not gonna lie to you. So that's what I want to say.
That's the right thing to say. Okay. Now, have you read the book of Job?
Yeah, I have.
Because the book of Job is even worse than Genesis 22. In the book of Job, all of Job's family gets brutally executed, all to win a bet with Satan. It says, on the day that the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, the accuser also came among them. The Lord said to the accuser, where have you come from? The accuser answered the Lord, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking up and down it. The Lord said to the accuser, have you considered my servant Job? There was no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. Then the accuser answered the Lord, does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a fence around him and his house and all that he has on every side? You have blessed him. You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But stretch out your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. So there's a bet that's being laid out here that God instigated. And God says to the accuser, very well, all that he has is in your power. Only do not stretch out your hand against him. So the accuser went out from the presence of the Lord and went and executed all of his family members, servants, and animals. And where's the justice in this story?
I mean, I don't think it's everything that God does that is like a test of justice, if you get what I mean.
I don't.
Like, it's not in every scenario that he's trying to display some kind of justice or something. Like, the devil came up to him because he wanted to torment Job, and he allowed for this evil to
Yep.
happen. Now,
Yeah, I
I feel
did.
like Job is a very hard book for a lot of Christians. Okay, let me not say that. I don't know.
If
But for
somebody
me,
came and wanted to
personally,
torture your children, would you let them do it?
no, I wouldn't.
What if they made a bet with
But
you?
no, I wouldn't. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
It's
okay.
hard for me.
Why wouldn't
Yeah,
you
it's
do
that.
it?
So okay, yeah, so let me explain. So because this book is hard for me because when I think about it from a rational perspective, I'm like, wow, like why should God let this happen? Like Job didn't do anything. He
God caused it
was
to happen.
he didn't cause it, he allowed for it. That's like the
No,
language that's used by
he caused it
scholars.
to happen. He started the bet, he initiated the bet, and then he gave the devil the parameters of the bet. He said, go and take everything he has, just don't touch his body. So he laid out the parameters. He could have made the parameters as such that innocent people didn't die. And then it even says, if we go down to verse 16, some of the death in verse 16, while he was still speaking, another came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants. So God himself participated in killing these people.
Yeah, but there's something you said initially. You said God initiated the bet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's true.
Yep.
I think the devil came up to him and said, I want to do this terrible thing to your servant.
God initiated it. God says, have you seen
Ew.
my servant Job? Verse 8, the Lord said to the accuser, have you considered my servant Job?
Okay, but that's not him initiating a bet. Like, am I missing something? Like,
It
it's
is.
the devil that said he wanted to do that terrible thing. God
Mm-hmm.
wasn't saying, go do this thing to my child.
He did.
He allowed for it to happen. Like, I know what you mean, but like,
No, listen, you can't
mhm.
put this on the devil. This is God's doing. God's in control, not the devil.
Yeah, he is. But you're saying that he initiated, like, he just randomly wanted
He
to do
did.
something
Yes.
weird.
God
But he came
suggested
up,
to the
if,
devil that he needs to observe Job. And the devil said he only blesses you because you bless him. And God said, okay, bet. Go ahead and torture him.
Yeah, but that's not engineering. Anyways, so I'm not going to. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. But what I was saying initially was this book is hard for me because sometimes I really don't have all the answers. I'm not going to come up here and pretend like I have all the answers to Christianity because I don't. I'm not that the smartest person ever, and I don't know everything. But that's why I said I didn't want to get into all the tough parts of the Bible. I also wanted to ask you some
But
questions genuinely
but that
as
is the
someone who was
point.
disconstructed.
You're allowed to ask me questions because you've answered mine. But that is the point of the live, is to make people read the difficult parts because nobody's reading them. They're skipping over it.
No, no, I read a lot of them too. Like even the thing that happened with Dana and uh Jacob's sons. I read a lot of these because I really try to contend with these things. I don't want to be just blind faith because you can't just a lot of the saints in the first, second century, they tried to come to Christianity with reason. Saint Augustine, for example. So I try to do that as well. But I totally understand where you're coming from.
Sure.
Is it okay if I ask you some questions as well?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the whole thesis of Christianity is that Jesus Christ has fulfilled the law and there's nothing else you need to do except to carry your cross and follow him. That's the basic. Is there anything in particular that you disagree with Jesus Christ on?
Yeah,
And
that's
why
not
would that
true.
be?
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what Jesus said because he didn't say that. I'm disagreeing with you what you said. Jesus didn't say that the law is now done away with.
No, he didn't say the law is done away with, but he fulfilled the law.
What does that even
So
mean?
so okay, so let me give you an example. He said, if you love me, you will be my commandments. So clearly, he's also referring to some kind of existing laws. But at the same time, he tries to let the people know that the main point is your heart, not necessarily how you or how much you obey the law.
How does
Because,
this answer my question?
I mean, didn't you just say that
This is what I was talking about before when I ask very clear questions in the line of conversation, then you say things that are completely unrelated to the question. My question was,
I'm sorry,
what
maybe I
does
didn't
it
get you.
mean that Jesus fulfilled the law?
It means that there is no need for a man to be bound to the law from the Old Testament.
And Jesus
So,
never said
no
that.
more of this circum. No, it's true.
I'll
Because
put it
when he says
I'll
that
put it
I
on the
will give you.
screen. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have come not to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth pass away, not one letter, not one stroke of a letter will pass away from the law until all is accomplished. Therefore, whoever breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus wants you to follow the law of Moses.
No, not the law of Moses,
Yep.
because specifically he says one time that Moses gave you this law because you're hard of heart.
We'll try
When
this
he was talking
again.
about
It
things
says,
like
do not think that I have come
divorce.
to abolish the law or the prophets. What are the law and the prophets?
I'm sorry.
What are the law and prophets?
I mean, a pretty simple one is the Ten Commandments and like the
Nope.
prophets in the Old Testament.
The law is the law of Moses.
But that's the thing. If he was referring to that, he wouldn't have said Moses gave you this law because you were hard of heart when he was talking to them about abortion. Sorry, divorce.
Divorce, yes, Deuteronomy
Yeah.
24. Jesus,
So he
Jesus,
said he
nope,
gave.
stop. Jesus isn't contradicting Moses here. Jesus is integrating the book of Malachi. In the book of Malachi, God says, I hate divorce. So Jesus is rationing that it's okay to modify this law because God obviously had a different thing in mind because God actually gave a word through Malachi. But you can't just go into the law of Moses and say all of it's gone now because Jesus says that you should be following the law. He says, therefore, whoever
Yes.
breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever does them and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. So it's just logically true that by following the laws, you are great in the kingdom of heaven.
Okay, yes, you're right. But
There
can
you go.
I give another verse to like add to this point you just said?
Sure.
The verse that is coming to mind right now is when he was his disciples were eating, and then some of the teachers were like, "Oh, what they're doing is not good because
Mhm.
they didn't wash their hands before they eat." And he was like, "Oh,
Mark
so
7.
if you're, yeah, if you're saying all of these, why don't you then stone your children according to the commandment of obey your father and mother? But
Yeah,
then you let that go for Kuban." The logic in that clearly shows that he's not saying that they should then go and stone their children. That's not what he's implying. He's
that's
saying
exactly what
that
he is.
obviously, no, he's saying that obviously
Nope.
that there are some laws that are not to be done. Like that if these laws, you don't do them because the commandments cannot be totally fulfilled. That's why he came
They
because
can.
they couldn't fulfill the law.
They
So
can.
if they could, they would have no need for a greater
They
sacrifice. But that's the
can.
thesis of Christianity.
Not only can they be followed, but people did it. And God says you can do it. In Deuteronomy 30, verse 11, it says, "Surely this commandment that I'm commanding you today is not too hard for you, nor is it too far away." So this is not something that you can't do. And Luke chapter 1 says Zachariah and Elizabeth were righteous according to all of the commandments of the law. So you can do it. And it says here in verse 9 of Mark 7, he said, "You have a fine way of rejecting the commandment of God in order to keep your own tradition." So he's chastising the Pharisees for making up their own commandments that invalidate the commands of Moses, which means he wants them to follow the law of Moses, not their own commands.
No, the logic there is not. It's like saying if we see if A then B. He's not saying if A then you should do B. It's more like you don't do B, and rightfully so because
He didn't say that,
okay. No, I'm trying to talk about logic like in just layman terms because
but you're lying on the
even
book.
in no, not necessarily because I heard what you were saying earlier about like the woman and like when they have consummated the marriage and then they show the blood or something to show that they're virgins, and if they're not then they're killed in front of their parents' homes. But we can see clearly that in the New Testament Joseph didn't do that to Mary when he found out that she was pregnant
So
because he was righteous. Because that's the thing, it was people that were hard of heart and very stubborn that like to do those kinds of
that's not
things.
what the book
That's why
says.
Jesus it is, and that's why Jesus was
No,
talking about.
wrong again.
Sorry, I just want to quickly wrap my thought in a bit, and then I'll let you speak. Sorry, but um, that's what Jesus is trying to say because when he's telling them about adultery and killing, he says, Moses told you that if you, sleep with another woman, you've committed adultery. But verily, I tell you, if you look with lust another woman, then you have committed adultery.
Yeah, so
And
what?
he's what do you mean, so what?
So what? We're talking about Joseph. You're really
Yeah,
struggling to
yeah,
stay on
that's
topic.
no, I'm not. I'm just trying to, when you're like making a conversation, you use different things to buttress your point. That's what I'm trying to do. So I'm not trying to jump all over the place at all. Like I'm saying that Joseph was righteous. Like the Bible calls him righteous because he didn't do that thing to Mary. So it's understood
I don't think that's the
that these
case.
things.
I think Joseph was
No,
a
so why
righteous
would they call him
man, but it
righteous?
doesn't say that not putting her away was the righteous thing to do.
No, no, it does. It implies that. That's why he's righteous. He's not righteous for any other thing. Like it implies that in that verse that he put her away in that quiet manner because he was righteous. A lot of the Jews were very hard of heart, very like stubborn, and that's why a lot of the laws were harsh.
The thing
Now,
that
this
made
doesn't
you
justify.
righteous was following the law. Following the law made you righteous. That's why in Deuteronomy it says, "By following the law of the Lord, you'll be doing what is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God." So if you're saying that somebody is unrighteous by not following the law, then you're lying on God.
Not really. That's why it's very like it's
Don't worry, I'll
it's
read it
three
for
dimensional.
you. They never read their book. It's okay.
Oh come on, why are you saying that?
It's going to be in Deuteronomy. And he also says to follow these laws forever, by the way. In Deuteronomy
Sorry, what did you
10,
say?
he says to serve the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and keep the commandments of the Lord your God. Keep all of them. Keep all the commandments of the Lord your God. He didn't say keep some of them. And then he says to keep them all the days that you live on the earth. Deuteronomy 12:1, all the days that you live on the earth. That's how long you're supposed to be keeping the commandments. In Deuteronomy 12, if you go down to verse 28, it says, "Be careful to obey all of these words that I command you today, so that it might go well with you and with your children after you forever, because you will be doing what is good and right in the sight of the Lord your God. So the God who gave the commandments said that you will be doing what is good and right if you follow these commandments.
Okay, but Jesus and his disciples were eating from the field without quote unquote following the law, because that some laws are not actually that. Let me just,
There's
without
no
lack of
law
better
against
words,
washing
that
hands.
deep. No, you can't. You need to wash your hands
There's
before you
no
eat, because
law in the Bible about washing
you'll
your
be defiled.
hands.
I literally think that there is one
There's
that
not.
implies if you don't. Okay, so let me give you three examples. When Jesus
It's almost like you don't listen
went
to a
to
word I
eat with.
say. Find me the law
No,
in the
no,
Old
I'm listening.
Testament about washing your hands.
I really don't think I can do that right now. I'm sorry. I don't want to
It's
be
not there. It
dishonest,
doesn't
but
exist. You're lying on the book.
okay, I'm not, but
You are.
I can actually try to find that, and if I
All right,
do, I'll
go ahead
let
and
you
find it.
know.
I'll wait.